No, no, everything's fine. Yeah. Do you want to check if your mic is working, Anne? Just check if your mic is working. Aha, so other microphone as well?
Test, test.
Yay.
But if we are only 15 people, then maybe we don't need a mic.
Yeah, but it's because they're recording it, so...
Oh.
So this, yeah, that's the only reason.
We're being recorded.
We're being recorded.
Then we need to ask people if they're comfortable doing games with us, if they're being recorded.
But they're not being recorded, we're being recorded.
Only us?
Only because it's going in here.
Okay. Well then.
But we just have to ask them before we give them the microphone.
Are you comfortable with being recorded?
Are you comfortable with being recorded and videoed?
Oh my God. Oh
my God. So welcome to the surveillance room, where we're being surveilled by microphones and videos. And it's really, we both feel silly using microphones, maybe me because I don't use them ever, and then also because there's like 17 of us or less. But we have to because it's being recorded and everything has to be recorded. So,
It doesn't have to, we want other people to know what
yeah.
happened here.
No, it's good, it's fine. There's no problem with this. I don't mind going on record. So
we have nothing to hide.
I've got nothing to hide. So we were actually going to start by not sitting down, if everyone's okay with that. I know it's like the end of the day and everything, but we thought we might actually break the format a little bit and like stand up and do something physical. Just so, please. So just by quick introduction sort of thing, my name is Dan, and this is my colleague Anna, and we work for an organization called Tactical Technology Collective. And yeah, this session is kind of like an introduction, I suppose, to the idea of digital security and privacy. And you might have seen some sessions by other people or not about that in the context of the festival. I think it's important that we underline the differences. We're not here to scare you or make you think that this is all impossible and it's a big scary world out there full of, danger. The idea is that we're going to look at how we can actually take control of our information through this process. We might have a moment where we can actually practice stuff, hopefully, but we're also going to talk and hopefully make it a bit more like of an interactive format and so on. Right. So yeah, so in that context, we're going to start with an exercise called a spectrogram. Has anyone ever heard what a spectrogram is? Okay, Milena has. Which is fine. I'm going to explain it maybe really, really briefly. Will I explain it or you want to? So this is an exercise we're going to do, which is a physical representation of our opinions about something. No? So we're going to imagine that there's an axis, there's a line that starts with the projector back here and ends just back at the last chair, right back here. Here. And where I'm standing right now, this represents absolute agreement with whatever I say. So I'm going to say something, I'll give you a statement like, I don't know, cats are better than dogs. And if you completely agree with me, then you move up here. Huh? And if you disagree with me, as I think Anne might, you move down there, no? And if you think, well, you know what, they're both cuddly and I like them both, and maybe, I don't know, why do we have to be enemies? Why can't we love cats and dogs? Maybe you stay around here. And we can also move, no? We can, if somebody convinces you, we'll have a conversation and you can move up and down. Huh? Does that make sense? Are you guys okay with also like sharing your opinions about things and using a microphone? You don't have to. Okay, so Anna.
Right, so and the first question is, the internet is dangerous. And if you really agree with that
complete agreement up here, complete disagreement down there.
And if you totally disagree with the sentence, the internet is dangerous, if you really disagree with that, if you think the internet is the safest place in the world, then you come over here. Okay. So, who is, I think, closest to me is probably you? You're just observing, you're not playing? You don't speak so well, so maybe then we move to you. You agree most with me, so what makes you think that?
Because I believe that the internet is a neutral tool, so it depends on us using it. I know that it's not bad, nor good, nor safe, or nor dangerous. It depends on what use we do of it. Okay.
I'm studying law, so I have a legal background. So I think that internet is a weapon that you can see internet on double side. It's an opportunity because information is worldwide and everybody can get information, but it's also dangerous because you can't see who is behind the computer. So maybe with the legal view, this is the thing.
Does somebody down here want to?
Yeah, I'm in the middle because internet can be dangerous as everything in the world because internet is part of the world, so it depends.
Okay, somebody from down here should.
Actually, I think what's the part that's not dangerous is the internet, but the fact that the social situation of people who use the internet is kind of, people are not aware of the dangers they encounter in the internet, and they're criminally naive in part of what they're doing when they're sharing things, what they share with the public. So I think that makes it dangerous. It's not the internet per se, but the fact that most people really are not aware of the trail they leave in the form of information about them, in pictures and baby pictures and family situation.
That actually is a nice, relates nicely to the next sentence that I'm going to put out and ask you to position yourselves to, which is, I have nothing to hide. Complete agreement with that over there. Nothing to hide.
I got nothing to
with
hide.
Dan. And I got something to hide is over here.
So the liars over there.
Nothing to hide.
Nothing to hide. I have nothing to hide.
No, I don't know. Yes, exactly. Because the statement is this.
You have nothing to hide.
Yes, but I or some.
You have nothing to hide?
You as a person.
Of course not.
You want to...
Maybe. I am really the only one that I have something to hide. I don't feel I don't know how to call it. I just want to have my secrets. That's all.
So you agree with them?
Okay. So it was misunderstanding. Yes, I thought. Oh, one thing. What can I say? No, this is not associated with this, but I really need to leave earlier. And sorry, but this is not about you. This is about my friend.
Okay.
So everyone who has to leave early, we have some materials up there on the table, and please don't hesitate to pick up some stuff and take home to read more about what we're doing. So your English is uncomfortable, but maybe someone wants to help translate? So you have nothing to hide.
For me, internet is the freedom. So everyone che non ha niente da nascondere, si deve mostrare per quello che è, no? Cioè come quando uno si trova in una piazza, diciamo, globale, virtuale.
All right, so he says that internet is like a virtual market, no, where you just are there, and you are yourself, and you don't hide. It's nothing but like a square outside, but virtual. So that's why he's sitting here.
Does anybody disagree? Wanna take the mic?
No, basically I don't disagree with him. Yet there's someone, since the internet, it's a kind of filter. So you are in front of a computer, and so you can pretend you are anything, anyone. So that's the problem. Because for you normal people, ordinary people like us, it's not a problem to give information on the internet. But what about criminal people? What about pedophily? Yes. So all this kind of people, criminal organization and so on. So but generally they don't use the web. They use the darknet, these things. So, but mostly on social platforms, they pretend that they are someone they are not. So that's the problem. We believe, since we are honest people, we believe that anybody is honest, that anybody puts information on the internet corresponding to real life, but it's not every time like that. Okay.
So I would just say my privacy is my privacy, and my intimacy, most of all, is my intimacy. I know it's already too late. It's too late. Though I'd like to do something about it.
No, I would like to reply and to ask you that maybe you are unaware that when you are searching something on internet, you are always telling something that if you were in a square, maybe you won't be so happy to know that everybody knows maybe your favorite color. I don't know.
Will we move on?
Yeah. I know we can maybe get on with this discussion maybe a little later if you find the time, but I would like to put 2 more questions, or actually 2 more statements to you, and see where we get from there. And the next one is, I trust Facebook. Total agreement is up here. Total agreement is Dan. Dan is on Facebook all the time.
Why I do?
Up to you.
Why not?
I trust Facebook. That's Dan. He's like online on Facebook and posting cat pictures all the time. And I completely distrust, and way beyond that is back here with Milena. I don't trust Facebook is over here. Okay.
Well, of course not, and I think what we don't really realize is how much Facebook knows about us. So we have this wall, no? And we can see, when you scroll down, you can see up to, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago or something. But you can, if you load more and more and more and more, you'll see things there that you completely forgot, are out of your head, but Facebook still knows that about you. So I think that's something that we don't really realize, that history in the internet, even if we forget, it stays there, and it's always there. So I actually give all this data to Facebook willingly for some reason. Even if I don't trust it, I still use Facebook. But yeah, it's amazing how much information is there about me, even if I don't know everything.
Messaging too is a record kept.
Yeah, messages and everything.
Messaging is really. You think you're private, but you're.
Oh, you mean like WhatsApp or like this? Oh, the message on Facebook. Yeah.
I believe it's a closed room, but it's not. No, it's not.
And then maybe someone who does trust Facebook.
That was only me, and I'm lying.
That was only.
But,
I know that Facebook owns everything you put here, like all your information, pictures, whatever. And I'm aware of it, so I just put the stuff I'm really aware of. Because if you know really what you're uploading and writing here, and you control it, so, yeah.
What about things that your friends put there about you without you knowing?
It's their lives. I mean,
But pictures of you.
pictures of me.
There was another opinion. You wanted to say something?
Yeah. Basically, they don't upload any pictures of me because I'm a little bit hiding myself sometimes. So.
One more.
I trust Facebook is a place, so I trust some people I met on Facebook. So some people, also my friends that are on Facebook. So if it's used in a proper way, I can trust Facebook.
Okay, now to the next one.
Yeah.
The next one is, I know.
I was just going to ask for hands. How many people are journalists here? Like, okay, I was just curious.
Yeah,
Just, okay.
I know how to protect my communication online. Dan knows
this
that.
time I'm not lying.
I know how to protect my online communication. Is Dan. He knows.
I agree,
he
but
agrees
it's not about
with
me.
this statement. If you have the feeling you know how to protect your online communication, you move with Dan. And if you think this is the beginner's workshop and I have no clue how to do this, that's here.
It's okay. It's okay if you don't know.
It's okay if you don't know.
If you don't
That's
know,
why
it's
we're
back
here.
there.
That's exactly what the workshop is
You can be in the
for.
middle, or you can be, you know. This is if you know you're here. Well, maybe not everything, eh?
And so now, this time, because it's a bit maybe tricky, I'm not going to pick someone. If someone would like to comment on this one?
Volunteers?
Volunteers?
I think that today you can know, tomorrow you already cannot know because something else is coming up.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Anybody else? Okay.
I think it's difficult because also when you enrolled in a social media like Facebook or other social media, you have to accept the term condition. If not, you are out. So I traveled a lot, so to stay in contact with my friends in America or Singapore, I need Facebook because it's a very impotenza. Yes, it's powerful, but we have to change the way Facebook approach with us. I don't know how to explain better, but this is the point. I suspended my account on Facebook from August because I don't have the time to read all the... I'm a future lawyer, so this is the point. I don't I don't have the time to read all, so I prefer to say, okay, I'm on Twitter because I read something, but Facebook, it's so invasive. So I prefer to study Facebook better, then maybe I will be back.
And
I find it particularly difficult to separate my privacy online from what I do professionally, because there's a certain element of exposure in working freelance. You have to expose yourself to a certain extent, be available. People need to know where you are if you have steady partners you work with. But on the other hand, it is extremely difficult even to maintain the privacy of a burglar, not knowing whether you're home or not, to, strip your place. I don't know. This is something I find particularly difficult as a freelancer.
Okay, no, I don't want to believe in complots, but at the same time, I think that maybe we are like using a lot of applications and Facebook and WhatsApp, and we are abituati. We are used to believe that everything is for free, but I think that there is, for example, Facebook bought WhatsApp, and I believe that there could be not only commercial use, but also, I don't know, something else that maybe just against our privacy, and I think that this is just enough.
okay, so and sure.
The reason I'm sitting in the middle is because I know a lot about what I should do, but it's very hard and I don't always do it. So how can we simplify this and make it more user-friendly? So all the security things tend to be a bit technical, a bit hard, so I hope you can teach us.
Big question that we're hopefully coming to get to. There's one last one that I would just like to quickly do, since this is a journalism festival and we've just found that some of you are journalists and then the others I think can relate to the same question. The question we just had now is I can protect my online communication, and the other question that we're coming to now is I can protect my sources online.
I can.
Who knows how to protect their journalist sources? is with Dan, and who feels not so comfortable with that. And
I can do it.
And I don't know how to protect my sources online. That's over here. And again, anyone who wants to comment on that?
So how do we protect our sources? The people who are up here, what do we do? If we can do it, how do we do it?
I use Tor. I use Tor, yes, and Tails. I use 3 different programming, what's the English? Operating systems. And one of these is Tails, by Tor.
You want to say what Tails is to people who don't know? Has anyone not heard of Tails here? Yeah. Okay, so Tails is actually, just to explain really quickly, we can talk more about it later, but it's like an operating system that you can have on a stick, on a USB stick, and you put it into the computer, and it is designed for anonymization, so anonymizing your browsing, your online activities, and so on, and like not leaving a trace on the computer. It's quite cool, but we'll talk about it later. Anyone else want to?
And if not, then we should maybe move on.
Maybe, yeah. Okay, so maybe because we're not many people, we can just grab a chair and we'll like move closer up here and sort of have a conversation. We can can we make a half a circle or something so we can?
Full?
I guess like a U, like a U. Doesn't really matter anymore.
There's also maybe if you want to back a little so that you can come in. There's also some more chairs up here. So.
Yeah. After seeing people sit in these like block all day, it's really nice to just. Yeah. Cool. So just before we start, so Anna and I, we work on this issue of digital security, and we focus a lot on human rights defenders, which some people, I think they feel that there's a difference, quite a big gap between what's a human rights defender and what's a journalist. But obviously there's contexts in which those two become mixed or indistinguishable even. In certain countries, in certain regions, and in certain moments, a journalist and a human rights defender are the same. When I say human rights defender, I mean this is a whole category of person that developed just because there's people out there who try to do work which is beneficial to society in general, that as a result of that work become in danger. No? And this is often the case for journalists in any case. No? So I just wanted to start with a little, I don't know if we can we switch on the computer thing? Yeah. So I don't know if you guys, I retweeted this a little while ago, and I tried to get people from the IJF to actually retweet this if possible. This is this girl Soli. She's a journalist from Ethiopia, and the only way that you can be an independent journalist in Ethiopia is to be a blogger, basically. And she and her friends started a blog called Zone 9, which is a reference to zone of a political prison, basically, in Ethiopia. And so they were, essentially, they see themselves as journalists, bloggers, and 6 of them last week were arrested for nothing other than being journalists, essentially, and they're currently in jail. So it's a personal favor to me, because I know these people. If you would tweet this hashtag #FreeZone9bloggers, that would be really great, and if we can spread it through the conference, because I think this, if the IJF is not a place where these people can have solidarity, I don't know where they can get it. So I just wanted to start with that, and also as a precursor to the reason that we actually do this work. For a lot of us in the West, at least, privacy and security are kind of maybe almost, we just think about our personal information, or they're kind of a luxury thing, no? But actually for other people this is a fundamental, and it's about staying free and staying safe. And that's the context that we're coming from. And I don't think we should take for granted that this will never be relevant to us the same way it's relevant to Soli and her friends. So on that note, which is a bit pessimistic, not really a presentation guy so much, but I thought I've got a little Prezi thing called How to Fight Back and Protect Yourself and Your Community, and I thought that maybe since we're doing an overview, we'll do a little overview through this way, and we can also have question answer as I go, rather than me just blah, blah, blah. And then we're actually going to try something practical for anybody who wants to, or at least demonstrate it. So we can actually, hopefully by the end of the session, some of us maybe who have computers can actually practice encrypting our communication with each other. And we can at least show you how that works. Does that sound okay? Yes. Yeah, cool. All right, so anything that's about digital security, right, it gets quite complicated. And a lot of people want you to think like, you know, this is really not easy, you know, like it's going to take you a long time to learn this and it's so hard to do it right and whatever. I think the biggest step that we take when it comes to our interaction with computers is to get the basics right. If we don't have the basics, there's no point learning like encryption, there's no point learning really technical stuff if we can't avoid viruses, for example. So the first piece of advice that if we ever train human rights defenders or journalists, the first thing we say to people is, well, you got to know the basics. And where does that start? Antivirus, please. It's an unfortunate fact of life, unfortunately, that a lot of us are using Mac and Windows, and well, I mean, even Linux can obviously get viruses. It's just one of those no-brainers. We need to have an antivirus program on our computers. It's unfortunate that most of them you have to pay for them, you know, to get the really good protection. Most of the free versions are kind of the same as each other. They have sort of an agreement among themselves. The free versions are the same. It's when you pay then the differences become important. I couldn't recommend one to you really. I mean, we talk about Avast, the free Avast, as being a pretty nice one that works. But this is like step one, you know, to like computer hygiene. I won't say much more about antivirus because it's been boring. If your password is password, your private bits are public. A little show of hands. Think about your longest password. Take a moment. Think about your longest password. How many characters? 16, 12, 13? 22. 22? Anybody beat 22? Okay. We won't push that. There's no need for competition. But 22, interesting. So a little demonstration. I wanted to make a graph for this, but it's impossible because the difference is so big. The problem, I think the reason that you have over 20 and over 20 is because we're not talking about a password anymore, are we? It's a passphrase.
No, I don't even know it.
You don't even know it? Oh, you're advanced. Yeah. Anyway, for a lot of us, I think a lot of us are tempted just because the word is password that we're just going to use a word, right? And you try and think of a word and then maybe you put some numbers at the end, no? Or what else do we do? Well, how else do we make a strong password? Please?
I actually use the phrase, I use something I learned as a child,
Uh-huh.
a poem or something.
Yeah.
And I use the first letters or the last letters
Mm-hmm.
the capitalization of the,
Yeah.
smaller and things like
Yeah.
that.
So
2 A's or something.
capitalization, codes, numbers, it's actually more and more common for people to do that now since this Heartbleed thing that happened as well. I don't know if you read it in the news, but passwords, strong passwords, people are getting to know what that means, no? And the thing is that what I don't think people quite understand is how effective it is, actually. I did a little survey. We compared passwords on this website called PassFault, which I can show you. Please don't put your real password into PassFault. There we go. So on this website, PassFault, you can actually analyze your passwords, and it will tell you how long it would take to break your password. And we used this, and we said, okay, how long would it take to break bananas? And less than 1 day. Well, actually, it would take like a long time more than a long time less. That doesn't make sense. It would take very little time to break bananas. We changed to banana lemonade, and suddenly it was like 2 days at this time. It might be even less these days. Then we added some capitals, and suddenly it was like 3 months with an everyday computer. With a fast computer, we're still talking about 1 day, no? Then we entered numbers, no? So there's 4s and 3s, and there's capitals. Suddenly it was 3 centuries with an everyday computer. And with a fast computer, it was still 1 month. And then we made it a phrase. And suddenly, I don't know what the word is for this, but it's a long time. And it's still only like 4,000 years if you have a fast computer. And then doing capitalization, numbers, phrase together, then this ridiculous thing. So it's actually very, very effective to just make those few little changes to your passwords, like to make them a phrase, for example, and to start introducing a few numbers, letters, and for it not to be like your dog's name, or for not to involve the really obvious information about yourself that somebody might socially get to know about you. Does that make sense? Now there's an alternative to this as well. One of the problems that comes up is, it's cool, you can come in. One of the problems that comes up with this is remembering your passwords, right? Because then you get like a strong password and it's like, oh, shit, so you start using it everywhere, and then suddenly you got one password for everything, for all your accounts, right? And if somebody finds that out, then they know all your passwords. So there is a software that we like to recommend people. There's a few options, but this is the one that we feel is the oldest and the most widely accepted in the sort of community, which is called KeePass. You can have it for Android, you can have it for iPhone, you can have it for Windows, Mac, Linux in different variations. This is the logo, which for some reason I'm zooming in on. This is what it looks like in real life. This is just like, some people have like a Word document where you write, you just type your passwords into some Word document. Some people do that. I'm not going to judge, but there's like the better version of that, which is encrypted to begin with. You make a file and you can put the file anywhere. You can disguise the file as like an MP3 or whatever. And then you can just like use it to generate new passwords. If I need a new password for my new Gmail password, I can just create new Gmail and it will actually suggest one for me. So eventually even I don't need to know my password. It's just this series of whatever. And it will just save it in the list, basically, no? So I can just, the problem is, obviously, I just need to know one password to open this file. And if I forget that password, I forget all my passwords. So it's, yes?
I think there's a similar program called LastPass.
Yes.
And there were, as far as I know, there were websites affected by Heartbeat.
Yep.
So how safe are these password generators?
aggregators? Yeah, so the thing about KeePass, for example, is it's not online. There's no connection necessary for this. You don't need to be, it's not browser-based or anything like some of these ones are. So actually it's just a file on your computer that you generate. You can obviously upload that file to the cloud or whatever, but the file will still be encrypted. So unless anyone can break the master password, then they're locked out of it. Yeah, I can't speak for LastPass, but all I can say is we don't recommend it. And we still haven't come around to recommending 1Password, for example, although a lot of people I know do use it and trust it. But KeePass, because it's not on the internet, is not vulnerable to that kind of attack, basically. And the passwords that it generates just take, they're extremely strong. The problem is, of course, sometimes you want to know your passwords as well, so you have to find a balance, and it's different for everybody.
But this is portable as well, and they
Yep.
have apps for Android.
Yeah. So there's a version for Android which is called KeePass Droid, and there's a version for iPhone which is called Mini KeePass, and then there's KeePass X for Linux and KeePass X for Mac computers as well.
So for Windows now, so we are
And there's KeePass X for Windows. Cool. So yeah, because it's open source, people have forked it and made different versions of it as well. So I'll move on from that quickly because I don't want to be presenting all day. So then we talk about communication, secure communication. I think as journalists, that's a really important one to focus on because when we talk about our sources, we're often talking about, we need to give them a means of communicating with us securely. It also means even just browsing securely, like that the content that we put online or the content that we browse online can be protected from being read by other people, by third parties. No? So the first principle we often talk about is SSL, because we often, back in the day especially, we used to get the question of which is safer, Yahoo or Gmail, because it's like everybody's using one or the other. And the difference at the time was this thing called SSL, or you may know it as HTTPS. You might have seen HTTPS when you're logging into your Gmail account, for example. And the difference between HTTPS and HTTP, where we don't see the S or the lock that appears beside it, is basically like the difference between sending a postcard or sending a letter in an envelope. If we're not using HTTPS, then our emails are just postcards. And there's a lot of points along the way where they can be read. So our friends, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, they made this quite nice illustration of how it works. I mean, we probably can't read everything that's there, but if we imagine ourselves as this little person on the top left on the internet, somebody on the same Wi-Fi as us, if everything were open, they'd be able to see everything, essentially. That if it were HTTP, they'd be able to read everything, whether it's our username, our password, the data on the website we're visiting, or the content of our emails, and even our location because of our IP address. If we use HTTPS, and this is something that, for example, Gmail always offered, and now is possible with Yahoo, it's, again, what people along the way can see is that we're looking at this website. They know that we're connecting to Gmail. So just like sending a letter, you have to put an address on the letter, no? So people know where you're going, where you're communicating with, but they don't know the content. And they don't know your username and password, for example. The same goes for your internet service provider. It goes for the sort of secret services along the way that might be listening in. And of course, the only other people who know everything you're looking at are the people who run the website. So for example, Gmail, and the people who work at Google can read and access your emails. It's normal, it's their computer, and there's their servers that it's on. And they can hand that information over if they want to law enforcement or whatever. I mean, so then it becomes a question of who's your provider and who do you actually trust to keep your data safe. And we often feel like there's no alternative to the major providers, but I would like to point out, so Google is very widespread, and at least Google have tended to always give us a HTTPS connection, but there's also riseup.net. Now riseup is a collective that's run by sort of hackers and activists from the United States, and they are based in the United States, and it's good to be aware of that. But they provide HTTPS, and they are quite committed to user privacy and to not handing over data, and they're not collecting your data and selling it to begin with, so that's a good place to start as well. And then it was always optional, HTTPS on Facebook, Hotmail, and now it's optional on Yahoo, so you've got to go in and switch it on, HTTPS, but you can find it in the settings. And not even possible on a lot of other ones. It wasn't possible on Yahoo for a long time as well, and we had to lobby them very hard to actually enable HTTPS for their users. Any questions about that? I feel like I'm talking a lot, so I'm just going to interject a lot with that. Any questions? Now, what's the next step? If we can get everybody onto HTTPS, so let's imagine we have a source that we want to talk to, and they're using something really insecure, like maybe they're using an old yahoo.fr website email, or maybe they're using like GMX. I think GMX doesn't have HTTPS even, does it? It does now, good. If they're not using HTTPS, we can get them there. Then what's the next step? Well, we're often not emailing, we're often using something like Skype or like Google Hangouts to actually talk in real time with people, and we need an alternative to that because it's the same principle. Something like Skype, which is extremely widespread and extremely useful, is also run, is owned by Microsoft, who have not demonstrated that they have a very high level of ethical standards when it comes to how they actually use your data. This has started with everything from creating a whole new version of Skype just for China, which was less secure, to saying that they will hand over user data to the Russian government. Considering these are people we trust with some of our most intimate and important communications, we need to consider alternatives sometimes. And luckily there are alternatives. So when it comes to secure alternatives to Skype, there's two programs. There's one called Pigeon, which is the You've got a little logo of a pigeon there. And the other is Jitsi, this blue one. We're gonna look at Jitsi in more detail shortly. Jitsi actually allows you to have video and voice conversations which are encrypted, as well as just chatting conversations. And it's compatible with your Google accounts, for example. For email encryption, we use what we call PGP, which is one of the more complicated things to learn, but is still very usable. Most famous incidents, I suppose, was that Glenn Greenwald had to learn. It took him a while, but eventually he learned to use it and was able to communicate with Edward Snowden this way, and it was a way that they used to protect their communications, initially about the NSA leaks and so on and so forth.
And had he not learned how to use PGP, he would have lost that story.
Yeah, if he didn't learn PGP, then there was no way that information was going to be communicated. It's an extremely strong way of protecting your communication. It takes a little while to learn, but not that long. I mean, you can learn it in an hour if you sit down with either of us and just do it. Yes?
I think Batmail is one of the email programs that includes PGP. But you can actually add it.
Oh, MacMail. MacMail. Yeah. There's a plugin for MacMail that's if you download GPG tools for Mac, and then there's it'll automatically work with MacMail, and you're right.
I'm talking about Batmail.
Batmail. BAT. Oh, I don't know it. Batmail.
Actually, when I've tried to talk people into using PGP, which is extremely difficult. And this allows me to add people to my address book, and the key will be decoded.
Interesting. I've got to look into that a bit more before I can say one way or another. But PGP in and of itself, because it's end-to-end, is definitely very effective. I don't know, like people are trying to make it easier in different ways, and I'm not sure to what extent it's still secure. But if you use Mozilla Thunderbird, or even actually MacMail with your Mac, you can download GPG or Enigmail for Windows and Linux, and that's quite effective. We're going to demonstrate Jitsi actually shortly, but yeah. The last important thing I think from a journalistic perspective maybe is this idea of circumvention and anonymity. So the thing about even when we're using HTTPS, when we're using SSL, there's still the addresses are written down. My address, where I am, what I'm looking at, like the website I'm looking at, so that's still known. No? And for example, if I want to collect data from sources in a secure way, this is something that could put them in danger. The fact that their IP address is connecting to my IP address. If I set up a website, for example, for them to submit data about something that happened. So then we talk about this idea of circumvention, and the most well-known and effective way of doing that is through Tor. So this is a browser actually that you can download for your computer for all of the operating systems, and it's based on Mozilla Firefox, so it looks like Firefox, it behaves like Firefox. I can even start it up just so we can see what it kind of looks like. Hopefully. And the idea of Tor is that it basically just anonymizes our traffic. And how does that work? I'll just zoom in. Oh no, please come back. Tor, can I see the thingy? I never understood this. Oh yeah, there we go. Hello. So instead, all these people along the way, if we take a hacker who's on our Wi-Fi, on the same Wi-Fi as us, all they'll be able to find out about me browsing is my location and the fact that I'm using Tor. So that will be exposed, but none of the data, none of the other data, not the website I'm looking at, not the content of that website, not my username, not my password. The ISP, my internet service provider, will only know my location, and they'll know that I'm using Tor, but they'll know nothing else about what I'm doing. The NSA will only know the same, my location, and that I'm using Tor. The thing is, it routes my traffic through a series of computers and servers along the way, which means that by the time it comes out of the last one, the NSA or whoever only know that somebody is looking at this website, site.com, and they're using Tor, but they don't know who I am or where I am. And the website themselves, obviously, they still, like, you know, if this is, at the end of the day, if I'm still connecting to my Facebook account, they still know, like, Facebook still has all my data, no? But if this is something like a website, a news website, which might be filtered, it means I can access it where in a country where it's censored, for example. It also means that, if I want to give information to a journalistic website, then I can do so anonymously. There's a very good example of that. I don't know if because I'm going a little bit over time. There's a very good example which was after, I don't know if you remember the Westgate story from Kenya, which was last September. The problem that happened in the Al-Shabaab attack in the shopping center. There was one organization which decided that they wanted to find out what really happened, so they needed to give people a way to submit, people who were there, give them a way to submit evidence, basically, or submit their story from having been in the Westgate Mall in Nairobi. And I'm just going to open up, this is what Tor looks like when it's opening up. So what they did was they set up a website using a platform called Global Leaks. I think there might have been some people from Global Leaks here at the festival, which actually uses the Tor network as well. To give you a platform basically to anonymously submit data. So it's a whistleblowing platform essentially, but you can also use it for journalism more generally. So if I go to I think the website was called Westgate Story. Hopefully it's still up. westgatestory.com. Hopefully this will work. This website only works if you're using the Tor browser. If you're not using the Tor browser, then you get this message saying you're not using Tor, you're not anonymous, get away from this website, basically. You know? But here, this is the website they set up. It's giving me a message. Yeah, Westgate Story, and then you can submit content. If you were at the Westgate, if you were in that mall, you could anonymously give your story to this organization, and they were able then to use it for reporting on what actually happened, because there was obviously, they felt that there was maybe misinformation being spread and so on. Any questions about that? This was run by an organization called Power 254, by the way, which is a really cool Kenyan organization. What's the name of this website? This website is Westgate Story, but you notice if you look, like I typed in westgatestory.com and I got redirected, and if you see the URL up here, it's this nonsense.onion. .onion is any website that's actually stored on the Tor network, so it doesn't actually have, it's a, what's that, a hidden service, basically. Yeah. I might just move on quickly, but we can come back to that and have questions about it. I think I was more or less done, actually, with the presentation part at least. Yeah, the last point was about social networking. Is anybody using something like Facebook, for example? I think Facebook in particular, are we using that for actual journalistic work? Or, yeah, sometimes? So in that case, I think it's just good to know the terrain a little bit and know what's actually happening there. No? It's a question of awareness. If you know what's happening, then at least you can be creative with it. And I think it's important to distinguish between security as an individual and what your security is and what security means to your sources, and information security, which is a bit more technical and it's a bit more objective. No? From an information security perspective, these platforms are very insecure. No? Information over these channels is designed to be shared and not kept private. They're not designed for privacy. And I don't think you should consider anything that you put on a social network to be private. Right? It's not. No? So when it comes to things like source protection, then it's a real reason to think twice about using something like Facebook as a means of communicating. No? A couple of points on this is just like to look at maybe the terms of service. So somebody actually mentioned that already. We did a little project where we just analyzed them a couple of years ago and like found some of the stuff. I think this was Twitter. You know, we may share your information with third parties. We may disclose your information to comply with the law, to protect the safety of any person, to address fraud, or to protect Twitter's rights. Your information may be sold or transferred. To comply with the law is a really important one, because the law of where. This depends very much on Twitter or whoever's providing your service, you know, and what their priorities are. And their priority is not always your safety or the safety of your sources. The same would go for Facebook, the same would go for Skype. Then there is this issue of like settings, so you can at least protect yourself from sort of stalking from outside, no? So other Facebook users or whatever. There's ways that you can at least limit the amount of your information that gets shared with them, but you cannot limit the information that Facebook has. And it's important to know that. Those settings don't protect your information from Facebook at all, and Facebook can see it all. Yeah, we have a little visualization about Twitter as well, but I don't think we'll go into it. The last points we make from it, oops. Oh, it's gone. Hello. This is Windows 8. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, this is from The Art of War, no? Know yourself, know your enemy, know the terrain. I think people often talk about risk analysis and like threat modeling as a very important principle, and it is very important that we just like, I can't sit here and just like, neither of us can just like stand here and give you like the answers to your digital security problem. You need to think about yourself first. What's the information I have? Where is it? Whose is it? And is it only mine, or do I have to think about other people? No? Who wants that information? Like of that information, what is sensitive, and who would want to try and get it? No? And how would they try and do that? What are their resources? No? Like how might they try and access my data or the data of my sources and so on? And then finally, just knowing the terrain, knowing like what is the architecture of a service like Facebook? What's the architecture of my email provider? Like how does it work? Do they give me a secure connection? Is it not secure? Is the phone secure? The answer is no. But so therefore, this being the situation, how do I act? What do I do? The answer is different for everybody. It's not like there's just 10 steps to follow or anything like that. We'll talk a little bit more at the end. We've got a couple of resources that will be very useful for you. We have these videos of this little robot character called Ono, which are nice sort of introduction to some of these issues around, like, it starts with things like mobile phones, passwords, internet cafes, and so on. We've got a website called meandmyshadow.org, which is a bit more, like Anna actually runs it basically, and it's about your personal data traces that you leave behind with your everyday activities, even on the internet. And Security in a Box, which maybe we'll look at in a bit more detail. We'll talk about them afterwards anyway, but yeah, maybe now is good for questions, if people have any, and then we can also do a demonstration. Any questions?
Well, I heard so many times things about the way to encrypt the mail, like PGP, etc. But also I heard a lot of times that when you encrypt an email, it precisely attracts attention, because it's not your usual activity, etc. And I also heard people recommending to use 2 different computers according to your activity, for your personal things, and I don't know, what do you think of all this?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on you a little bit, no? Like on your situation, because in some cases, encryption is a really bad idea. If it's going to attract attention to you, maybe it's better to know that your emails are being read and you have to not, not share sensitive information over that email account, for example. Or maybe set up another email account and only encrypt from that email account and still keep the charade going that you're still using your email account that's under surveillance. There's lots of different tactics you can use. The thing...
Maybe, yeah, please go on, but I wanted to add a thought to that.
Yeah, the thing about email encryption is that it is extremely effective at protecting the actual information. So it's a question of how you use it. Maybe it's not the best thing to use it, in certain circumstances. The other thing is that the more we use it, the less suspicious it gets. So actually, if it can become something common, like on a social level, just because we believe in the right to privacy, so we decide to protect our information regardless of what we're doing, then also that somehow lowers the extent to which it draws attention to us. Did you want to add? I know I'm going to come. Did you want to add to that?
Maybe just quick, which kind of really adds to what you were saying. It depends on the situation. I think if you're living in a country where encryption, for example, is outlawed, where it's illegal, and you know already that you're being watched, maybe then using encryption might not be such a good idea. Or, for example, in the case of the Zone 9 bloggers, I don't know if encryption played a role there, but if you're already in scrutiny, then that might be a problem. But I think for people in the West, this topic came up around the Snowden revelations when one of the leaks that was published was when the NSA kind of was found out to say that they're specifically looking for people who are using encryption, and in that case I would go the same way that Dan said, and think that okay, so they're maybe keeping data of encrypted communication longer, which is what they announced, but if everybody is encrypting, then that doesn't help them at all, because they cannot put all their computer power into trying to decrypt all of that, which, so as far as we know, they can't at this moment. So the more people encrypt, the better for all of us.
Yeah. You had you want a microphone?
No, I think
The recording? Okay, so take one for the team.
I wanted to know whether Threema is really an option instead of WhatsApp, because I use it, but again, similar to what's happening with PGP, it's like dragging mules through a gate to get people to join because it's end-to-end encrypted. And the other thing is regarding Tor and security. Jacob Appelbaum and Roger Dingledine they gave a talk in Munich, I think at the end of last year, about Tor. And I think Jacob Appelbaum said that there will be countries where you have to be aware that the security issue is not in the software, but that you have to be aware that the security issue can be in the hardware. He was giving an example about Vietnam, where Tor was not safe because the surveillance software was the keyboard driver. So I just wanted to add that.
I think the point that Jake was making is true in terms of this comes back to the know your enemy idea, right? And you need to know the methods that are being used to place people under surveillance. And when it comes to something like, when we start talking about keyboard or keyloggers even, and things like also some of the surveillance software like FinFisher.
He was talking about the Microsoft Vietnamese keyboard driver,
right.
language driver that was from Microsoft.
Wow. Yeah, so I mean, when you're up against that, then something like Tor probably won't help you. Yeah, I mean, that's true. The thing is, all of this digital security practices are about raising the cost a little bit. The idea is that you're going to raise the cost of surveillance. You can't have 100% protection against it. So in a case like that, I mean, what if you got to do is not use that keyboard software, that keyboard hardware, for example, which is some people obviously don't have that choice. So there's very little they can do. Unfortunately, it can be that way. And I mean, if you've got something like FinFisher or some other software like that on your computer, even, I mean, no amount of PGP is going to help you either, as we said.
And even beyond the option of software, if for some reason you have annoyed the Secret Service of the country that you live in and they just plant a hidden camera behind your desk and just record everything that you type, that's not a software issue, but still, and using Tor is kind of obsolete. So there, again, as Dan is saying, there is no such thing as perfect digital security. There's always a way to come around that, but that is... If you're up against secret services of that kind, then maybe sometimes it's better to write on paper.
I was just trying to say that sometimes it's not pointed surveillance, individualized surveillance, but in this case it's the entire country.
It's generalized, yeah.
It's generalized for the entire country that the keyboard driver is not safe. So it makes sense to know which countries use this kind of...
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you've got to...
More hardware-based, because that's a trend too.
Yeah, yeah. You asked about Threema. I don't actually know Threema.
Maybe I can comment.
You know it?
Yeah. Threema is an encrypted messaging app, which so to say has the same function as WhatsApp and several others of these apps, and encrypts messages. If we were to do a spectrogram of like what's super secure and what's really insecure, then I would put WhatsApp on the like very insecure end for different reasons, and Threema I think would be in the upper third of towards secure. Threema is, as far as it is known, using a very good encryption and has pretty good usability, and therefore it's much better than, for example, using WhatsApp or other messengers that are not using encryption. The one thing that we don't like so much about it is that it's not open source, or not all of it is open source, and so if it's not possible to audit the software to check that they're actually doing what they're promising on their website, which is to safeguard your privacy, and there is no reason to believe that they don't, so there is no news about that, but still it's not possible to check that, and therefore we think Threema is a very good option, but there are better ones, because there are also apps that are open source, which for example, Text Secure is one, which is open source, and then Chat Secure, yeah, there's two different protocols. One is only to be used in real life, basically like chatting, so you cannot do it like I send a message and you read it 3 hours later. That's what Text Secure would be good for, but Chat Secure is really like chatting in real time. And they're both very good, and we would very much promote to use them, but and as you have already found out, it's very, very difficult to drag people into using that. And still, personally, for example, I have several of these messengers, and with families and old school friends, I still refuse to use WhatsApp because I just really think it's very, very insecure and also very unhealthy for the other data that you have on your computer, because you're basically handing over all your contacts information to WhatsApp and now Facebook, because they bought that. For these other reasons, I try to talk people into, for example, using Text Secure, or another one which is called SureSpot, which is also very nice and also open source. And then basically I use with the people whatever they like most, so which is why I have several ones, and different of my friends use different of these messengers. And Threema definitely is, I mean, the usability of Threema is better than Text Secure, I have to say that. And so it's still much better than WhatsApp. SureSpot. SURESPOT.
Okay, I have a really, really basic question. Because before coming here this weekend, I was very, very unaware, but also now. But suppose I am like a normal person, like not involved in journalism or other particular activities, why should I protect myself? I mean, I know, I imagine, but just I would like to know more specifically to spread the news. I don't know.
Let's put it the other way around. Would you want to take out the wallet out of your purse at the moment and give it to some stranger in the street to look at? Would you feel comfortable about that?
No. For example, I don't know which kind of person could enter in my email or track my email. I mean, which kind of skills do you have to be able to do this? Because I am very, I don't know anything about informatics, so
That again depends on how you handle your email. For example, if you use a tablet and access webmail, not through a mail program, but for example Gmail through the browser. Well, Gmail actually is a bad example, but if you use one of the mail services that Dan described that are not using SSL or HTTPS, which are by now luckily hard to find, but if you were using one of those and you were using your tablet and you were going to the airport and using the open Wi-Fi at the airport, anyone in the airport would be able to access your email with a little program that is not difficult to use and freely available, which can just like scan for all the usernames and passwords, and then, for example, I'm sure many of you have heard of these bizarre cases that Twitter accounts get hacked, that your friends have probably have their Twitter accounts taken over by somebody else, and you really don't understand how that happened, because you also still yourself are able to access them. And that is possible, for example, because the Twitter password was transferred quite visibly through an open Wi-Fi in a cafe or in an airport, and that is very simple to do.
Don't know why, because I'm not very informed, but I understood this. Somebody said once a very beautiful metaphor about why you should protect yourself. So it's, you know, when the NSA story broke out, everybody was like, but you know, I don't have anything to hide, so it's okay. Even if they read my emails, what would I have to show? And somebody said that it's almost like having a telecamera in your bedroom, and it's not on, and nobody cares about you, because indeed you're just one of the many people out there. But the minute you do something that attracts attention, and it can be anything, really, writing a news, click like for WikiLeaks, you know, many people who liked WikiLeaks on Facebook couldn't travel to the States or had problems when traveling. So when you do anything, they turn on the camera. And they can see also the history, everything you've done before. So that's why it's maybe we're just people, but sometimes we can people can pay attention to us, and then everything we've done, it's online.
Actually, I do press work for a company that is a service provider in Germany for telecommunications. We're trying to run a series of posts on Facebook about how people should protect themselves. And we're not talking about journalists, but we're talking about normal people, because the idea behind it is that we could act as something that in German we call Bohnenvergifter. You can actually poison the ill-meaning people are trying to tap. So we're trying to get very normal people to use stuff like a disconnect search, or Metago, a German browser that will scramble for source data, or use Perfect for secrecy, browsers that are secure in your search. Because in this wall of secrecy, or in this wall of encryption, it's possible for normal people, for people who work in this field, journalists, for example, able to hide. Because the cost for civilians comes so high that the NSA will have to, or others will have to back off the bill, because they just can't afford it. And it was something I think Snowden said in March, and I could hear that the trend should be by default to protect everybody, that we should always advise normal people out in the streets to use it.
I think maybe a good example also is specifically around the Snowden revelations, the situation of the Guardian journalists. I have to say I was quite surprised how tense the situation got for the Guardian in the UK so fast over the revelations and the publications, that my feeling was that most journalists all of a sudden got a very uncomfortable feeling of how uncomfortable a situation can become when you start publishing good stories. And another thing that I wanted to add is, one thing is to actually protect your sources, protect your material, protect your communication, but then often in situations like that, if somebody wants to make your life uncomfortable, they don't go after your emails with your source, but maybe they look at your tax declaration. And then all of a sudden they find some irregularities, and then all of a sudden you have some very uncomfortable legal case which has nothing to do with your work, but is looking at something completely different, which might compromise you and made it very, very difficult for you to continue your work, which is another reason why I think general privacy for yourself as well as for the people you communicate with is always a good idea.
One question. Do journalists often happens to work anywhere? So in open connection like the airport or a bar, what's the best way? It can be interesting for us to know. What's the best way to protect computer in this situation?
Yeah. traditionally we'd say it's good for you to either use something like Tor or VPN. I don't know if everyone knows what a VPN is. This is what we call a virtual private network. So basically, well, the Tor network means that your traffic goes through a whole series of different points around the world before it arrives where it's going, which gives you anonymity and also makes it a little bit slow sometimes. Then a VPN doesn't necessarily mean you sacrifice speed. It can be quite fast still, but you're not necessarily anonymous as such, no. But you can still, it does protect your the data, you know, as long as you've got a trustable one. The same people who run RiseUp Mail also have a RiseUp VPN service that's free. That's not particularly fast in my experience, but it's free. So RiseUp, yeah. If you go to, I think it's vpn.riseup.net, you can.
There's a similar group as Rise Up here in Italy, which offers both email and also VPNs, which is called autistici.org. You may have heard of them. They offer the same services. And I want to look at the clock because we only have 50 more minutes. We wanted to demonstrate. And
so we might just. Oh, you had a question. Sorry.
No. Sometimes universities have VPNs. So they are not that secure. So normally you're logged in with your account, so they know who you are, but at least the traffic is going to the university and then going.
Yeah. So you need to know who
else.
provides your VPN as well. That's really important to actually decide. And if it's something like your university, they may have some investment in actually a certain amount of monitoring, for example, of the network. We just wanted to show people because then. There was some discourse around, I think, in the last couple of days that was saying that digital security is really difficult, and so we just want to show you one tool that we really like that's really easy to use, and actually it's called Jitsi, J-I-T-S-I, and if anyone wants to try it out, and feel free to join us. It's a J-I-T-S-I, and the website is jitsi.org. I might just open it up in the background. So the way Jitsi works is basically it's like you don't need to create a new account as such. You can still use your Google account, for example, when you're using Jitsi and have all your Google contacts there. And the idea is that you bring them, obviously, to start using Jitsi or something compatible with it. And there's a number of programs that are compatible with it that we'll talk about, also for iPhone, for Android. So you can download it from here, jitsi.org. And this, I feel, is the most user-friendly of the chat encryption tools. So I'm using my Google account with it in this case, right? So if I open up my Gmail here, I've got a conversation with Anna. And what's happening is, I just open up the Jitsi user interface. So this is Jitsi, where I'm talking to Anna. And I can write something to her here and say, hello, ciao. Since we're in Italy. So I say ciao here, but what shows up in my, what Google sees is this. No? Now, I can just show you, if I switch off I'm sorry, it's in Spanish for some reason. If I switch off the secure chat and now I talk to Anna, let's see. Maybe I think that we should just get the normal message coming up. Or was it encrypted again? Maybe it's just staying encrypted for now. Our connection might be broken. Mm-hmm. The long and short of it is when two people are using this program together, I've got my list of contacts. Anna's there. I can just click on her. I can open up a chat window, and then we've got this little padlock up here, where if I click on this padlock, then it goes into this private conversation, and what that means is that my messages look like this when they go through the internet. So nobody along the way can read our messages to one another. And we can take it a step further. What if somebody along the way is intercepting and pretending to be Anna, for example? Huh? So then I've got a message up here which in Spanish says, authenticate Anna. That means I've got to somehow verify that the person I'm talking to on the other end is actually Anna. So if I click on that, we actually have this Spanish thing. I'm going to choose what we call fingerprint verification. That means, so there's an electronic fingerprint which is generated by my computer when I use this program, and there's one for her computer as well. And we got to call each other on the phone or maybe send an email to each other and say, are these indeed the two fingerprints for both of us? Which is a long process of saying E615CAC05F2 blah, blah, blah. But in the end, if we can verify that, then we both know, I know that nobody's in between intercepting our communication or changing it, for example. I'm not going to verify you now. Between which? Yes. So just to be clear about that. This is when I'm using Jitsi, this is what we can see when we're talking. Are you able to write to me at all?
I have been, but it's not coming through.
It's not coming through. Oh. This is just there's a name for this law when you're like demonstrating tools. Oh, Gilo's online. Go back to your work, you slacker. I am working. So this is what happens when you start a conversation with somebody. He's not going to show up in my Gmail though. Basically what this represents is if I've got a Google contact here, normally Google would be able to see on their servers every message that we send to one another. They'd be able to access that. This program gives us the ability to encrypt that from end to end, so the only person who can read what we're saying to one another is the person indeed that it's intended for. I really don't know what else to say about it because it's so easy to use. Then there's other programs that are compatible with Jitsi. So this type of encryption is called off the record, OTR. And there's a number of programs which enable OTR communication. For Apple, for Macs, oh hello Anne, you're writing to me now. For Apple computers there's a program called Adium, and there's also Jitsi for Mac as well, which I could talk to Anna if she's using Adium, for example, and it works. For an Android phone, there's ChatSecure, which again, I can talk from Jitsi to ChatSecure, and that's compatible. There's also, for iPhone, ChatSecure as well, so same principle. They've got the same encryption standard, I suppose. So, yeah. I don't know what else to say about that. Any questions about that? I mean, it seems... does anyone want to try it and like talk to me? You want, yeah. Okay. So if you want to add me, my address on this is where is it? It's written in my Gmail here somewhere. danoc.ttc. I'll write it up here.
Just a second.
Yeah.
Is connected with the Jitsi or is it a Gmail account?
So in this case, it's a Gmail account, but you don't have to use your Gmail account. Actually, you can create a new account. Okay. If you go to there's a website which is just jit.si, jit.si, and there you can actually create a new account. Just username, name, email, password, and this will be on their servers then, rather than Google's servers. There's also other places where you can get accounts that you can use with Jitsi. For example, the Chaos Computer Club in Germany, they've got jabber.ccc.de. So that's another place you can get it. Jabber.ccc.de. So from there you can also get an account. Or yeah, you can and I mean, there's so few people with Jitsi accounts, like at jit.si, that you can just have your first name. Like, I'm just Daniel at jit.si. Nobody else has that.
There's also just the CCC is a service that's being used very much, but it's not super reliable because it's been run by volunteers and it happens that it comes offline. But there is a very nice website where you can actually look for similar services, which is called the Instant Messenger Observatory, which you can find at xmpp.net.
xmpp.net.
/directory.
xmpp.net. /directory. Yeah, German keyboard. Let's see what happens. The other cool thing that actually is maybe the biggest draw of Jitsi compared to the other ones is that we can make video calls and voice calls. So over here with Anna, you see up here I've got like a phone symbol and I've got a video symbol. So I'm sorry to do this to you. Your camera is blocked. Yeah. So I can... I don't want to see Gilo in his underwear in front of the computer. But we'll just do voice. It'll work with voice. Let's see how good the connection is as well. But there you go. It's ringing. Give it a sec. You can see me? So the thing about Jitsi is it's a bit glitchy sometimes, which is part of the reason that people end up using Skype instead sometimes. But does anybody else want to try? Nah. Okay, cool. So if you go to File and new contact, and then my one is Daniel at jit.si. Okay, yeah, and give me a name. Oh, and you've got to choose. No, you don't have to choose a group. It's okay. But you don't have an account yet, correct? You have no account. Okay. Yeah, you have to add your account first. So yeah, the steps, just to go through them, because you want to try this after the session. You have to add an account. So you can select from a number of accounts, like you can use your Facebook account even on it. You can use ICQ if you had that in the 1990s, or MSN, or yeah, even your Yahoo account, and you can import your contacts to there. We've got like 5 minutes. It's probably good to talk just briefly as well about what to do after this session, because also we're going to go away. I mean, you can obviously email us and we'll give you our cards and we can keep in contact that way, but there's also resources. I think this is the kind of thing where it's been the case for both of us. I think that you can go on your own adventure in terms of like what you want to learn and learning it, and we've tried to, as an organization, give people resources, access to resources where they can learn more about this kind of thing. The one that we tend to emphasize the most is this Security in a Box, which is securityinabox.org. We did start translating it into Italian at some point, but I don't know if it got there. Someone's calling me. Hello? Okay. No, it's off. Oh, so I got a new contact from my friend here. Authorized. Good. Cool. Now we're in touch. I'm just going to talk about this really quickly. And Security in a Box, you can. We've got a whole book essentially, and we've got a physical copy of the book here, and there might even be enough for everybody, maybe. But it has 11 chapters, and there's soon to be more chapters, starting with like malware and hackers, so like antivirus, all the way up to remaining anonymous and circumventing censorship, using mobile phones and smartphones. We have hands-on guides for tools, basically. So this is like step-by-step instructions of how to use different tools for everything from secure file storage, which is obviously very important as well, and we didn't talk about it so much, to things like Jitsi and Pigeon, which actually they go step-by-step with screenshots through the different tools. So, hopefully you wouldn't get lost in the process of actually setting them up. So we're trying to make that easy for people. Hey. So now we have to click on this padlock here. You got it? There we go. Now we're encrypting. Hello. Cool. I'm going to be right back. The last section that we have in this in the book at the moment is mobile security. So we talk a little bit more about the same principles, but for Android phones. So we have some apps there that you can download for Android phones that are everything from password management to encrypting emails and encrypting chat, and text secure we talked about for encrypting text messages, how to download them and how to install them. Yeah, and My Shadow. Do you want to talk about My Shadow for a moment? Yeah.
Do you So Me and My Shadow is a website that was developed after we did Security in a Box, and we had the feeling, okay, so Security in a Box is giving some tools to people who already know what they're looking for. They need mail encryption or data encryption, things like that. But at the same time, we had the feeling that, if you want to go to Trace My Shadow, maybe, a lot of people start at a very different level and just have a general uneasiness of like understanding, okay, so I go online and there's a lot of like dangers out there, but I don't actually really know how that works. I know that I leave traces and I know it's easy for people to learn things about me, but I don't understand how it works. And so Me and My Shadow is a project that tries to help you like understand where your data is actually going. So it gives you the option, and actually this is going to change very soon because we're going to relaunch the site, but currently you have the option of, at the left, to tick off boxes for the devices that you're using. So assuming you're using a computer, and so Dan has checked the Windows box, his computer has a Windows operating system or maybe Linux, and you have a mobile phone and that has an Android or an iOS system. And then below that, you can check off you're using certain online services like Google or Twitter, or you do online shopping. And the more you click off, the more stuff appears on the right. And if you, for example, now click on the left on one of those, or that way, you can see how the stuff that you're using is. Dan, can you maybe go back and click on one of the things on the left? That, like, now. Click off. No, wait, let me, please. Can I?
Yeah, go for it.
If I can know how to use it. So you have an Android, and then you click on that, and then you can see actually which of what kinds of traces are related to this Android phone. So for example, you're doing videos with it, but you also have third-party applications, which means apps that you downloaded and installed on your mobile phone, other than the ones that were already pre-installed, but there's also the Android apps. There's photos and my voice calls, of course, and SMS, and I may have my email address, and probably also have the geolocation function tagged. So these are all functions that regularly are being used through my Android phone. And if I then want to understand actually what comes of these, I can click on the little light blue read more thing here. And then, and this is probably going to take a little bit, and then it's going to give you more information what actually is geolocation and why is it a problem, and then in relation to that some more news articles if you want to read more about it, or even some resources and tips how to deal with them or how to protect yourself, and more explanation. So you can, like, it's a resource that gives lots of information and has tries to give a bit of context to many of the buzzwords that we hear about, but we don't really understand so well what is this and what is an IMEI, and what does that have to do with me. So that's Me and My Shadow. There's many cards that we produce that also have to do with that, and you're very much invited to take some of those and maybe take some time to read through, and it also points to more resources basically for like anyone, not so much the human rights defender with specific risk, but more like everybody who's online and who wants to understand more about what's happening.
My time is up, so.
I'm sorry. Any questions, comments, praise or criticisms?
Now, I just wanted to add a couple of things and to have a confirmation.
Mm-hmm.
In case you use an open source operating system, you don't need any antivirus.
No, that's not true.
Is that right?
No.
So if you use it, you don't need it.
You do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should have it.
Of course. And about Tor, I guess you know Tor to Web, which is for people. If you have a source which is not using Tor, they can download Tor to Web, which is a program, I guess.
Yeah.
And so your whistleblowers or sources can communicate with you using Tor, not directed to you, but through a server, Tor server. So you can post documents on anything on Tor, and through Tor to Web, they can enter and read, and they can post anything on the Tor server, and you can read it as well. So that's important, because a lot of people is telling, oh, but I don't know, I don't have Tor, I can't communicate with you. No, there is a free download service that you can download. It's free completely because it's an open source. So you can communicate through Tor with anybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also about Tor, I mean, we in the end we didn't talk about it as much as we could have, but you know, you can also, even if you're just using Windows or whatever, you can set it up. It's a little bit complicated, so that more of your programs actually direct their internet communication through the Tor network. So your mail application, like Thunderbird, for example, you can send it through the port that goes out to the Tor network. So while Tor is running, so then your mail, when you send an email, it doesn't come from your IP address necessarily, you know, to the person it's going to. And you can do the same with Jitsi. So you can send your Jitsi traffic through Tor. And then you can even send, if you use something like Tails, which is a whole operating system which was built on Tor, then you can send everything through Tor, and it's designed for anonymization, as much anonymization as is possible, at least. So that's very cool, and really, I mean, really useful for journalism, I would say as well.
And I have a question. What do you think about fake mails? Do they work or not so much?
You mean the ones where you get like this
a
domain?
Fake mail, yes. No,
I mean,
it's useless. Okay.
I'm not saying it's useless. I guess it depends, but it's not something.
If I have to communicate with something with you, who knows? Fake mails, what a fake mail is, I don't use it. But when usual people, users, ordinary users of internet, I can send a fake mail. It's difficult that they can trace me.
Yeah, it depends on who's running that service, though, and how much you trust them, and.
Yes,
you know,
okay.
Like,
okay, thanks.
Well, yeah. Any more questions? Are we finished?
On Jitsi, all the other people must be connected to Jitsi as well, because in my list I have all my Gmail contacts now in my Jitsi.
Yeah.
So they are all not protected conversations.
No, not until they either get onto Jitsi or something else like ChatSecure or Pigeon or Adium that are compatible. But otherwise, you can only encrypt when both people can encrypt. That's the only way it works. Yeah. So this is the problem, is that we have to start convincing people and spreading them, and it's difficult. Yeah. But possible.
And actually fun when you get it
And
to
fun.
work and it's there and you just click and start.
If people want to try it, we can also stick around outside and play if you want. You're welcome.
Okay. I think we haven't really talked about logs, because a lot of conversations and communications we have are logged. Also, browser searches are logged. So, what would you recommend are efficient ways of, I don't know, a cheat sheet? Every week I have to delete logs of A to Z, or I don't know, is there a procedure advice you can give, or is there advice what features I have to turn off in certain communication devices to get rid of the logging?
Good. I think good programs like Jitsi and so on, they give you the option to just not log the conversations, so there's no history saved of them. And something like Firefox, for example, there's add-ons for Firefox that just try and block out as much as possible as well. Yeah, so you don't even have to think about it. Could have happened. Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely something that I find it always hard to say these are the 5 most important things you need to do to protect your communication online, because that comes back to the idea that you first need to understand what you want to protect yourself against, because there's so many of these kinds of things that each of them, and many of these things are good at. I would personally find it very troublesome to say, okay, this is even a list of the 10 things that you need to do, because it really, again, depends on what you want to protect yourself against. And I think not having log files is definitely a good idea. On the other hand, for example, if you're a journalist and you're depending on sometimes being able to look up the communication with someone that you had 6 months ago, then maybe that's not really a good option for you to always erase everything. So it's worth thinking about, where do I want to keep things and where do I not want to keep things, and if I do want to keep them, then maybe spend some time thinking about how to encrypt the files that I keep on my computer. That might also be really important to do. Generally, I'm all for not keeping logs, for example, of chat communication, but and also of my browser history, which is something that you can quite easily manually delete. Or if you have, I think in Firefox and Chrome, and I don't know about the other ones, you can choose this option of opening so-called private tabs, which do not keep the logs of your browsing history, which is also an option.
Okay, time is up, he says. We can just talk without microphones if you want. Or like outside. Thank you.